Level 1, the private. You are 17. You stand in a muster hall that smells of concrete and boot polish, in a line that has already decided most of your life before you opened your mouth. The men with clipboards are not looking at your face. They are looking at a file. Your file says where your grandfather stood during the war, what your father does for work, whether your family has ever been on the wrong side of a question. This is songbun, a hereditary loyalty classification that has quietly sorted North Korean citizens for generations, and it decided, long before this morning, whether you were even a candidate for what comes next. You don't know yet what elite will mean. You only know the boy 2 places down the line has been sent home, and no one explains why, and no one asks. You are handed a uniform 2 sizes too big. You are told your name will now come after your unit number. Somewhere above you, in buildings you will never enter, men are deciding what this uniform is worth. You are not told that yet. You are told to stand up straight. A private does not ask what he is for. A private is told what he is for once, and expected to remember it forever. Level 2, the trainee. You are still 17, and now you belong to a place with a name that sounds like weather. The Storm Corps, headquartered around Tokchon, a garrison town most of the country has never had reason to say out loud. The first months are the ones nobody warns you about. 3 months of drill, formations, garrison rules, marching until your feet stop being feet. Then, since the spring's draft, something new. 12 straight months of specialized training where before there had been 3. The command word came down in an order dated late April, doubling what used to be 6 months of shaping a soldier into 15. Somewhere in a headquarters building, a committee decided that the old timeline no longer produced what special was supposed to mean, and your body is the proof they are testing. You learn to move without being seen. You learn silence as a discipline, not an absence. You learn that a mistake in this yard is not corrected with words twice. At night, in a barracks with too few blankets for the number of men in it, you understand the first rule before anyone states it. Obedience is the only currency you own yet. You have no rank, no leave, no say in tomorrow's schedule. You have only the choice to do exactly what you are told, exactly when you are told it, and that choice, small as it looks, is the only thing here that is actually yours. Obedience spends first. Everything else you earn later, if you earn it at all. Level 3, Hasanao, Sergeant, non-commissioned, the first stripe that lets you tell another man what to do. Command, at this level is smaller than the word suggests. It is 4 or 5 men in a squad who look to you for the shape of the next hour. It is deciding who carries what, who watches which direction, who eats first, and it is a silence you did not expect, almost no live fire. A defector who trained soldiers in this same system once described his own service to a reporter. Men firing as few as 3 bullets a year, ammunition too precious to spend on practice, ordinary supplies like proper boots or toilet paper improvised rather than issued. You inherit that same arithmetic. The rifle on your shoulder is mostly theory. What you actually train, over and over, is movement, discipline, endurance, the parts of war that don't require spending anything the state doesn't have. This is the gap nobody outside ever sees. The word elite was built for people who will never watch you drill. Inside the wire, elite means disciplined under scarcity, not equipped beyond it. You give your first order and a man half a head taller than you obeys it without blinking. That's the moment command actually arrives, not in the insignia, but in the half-second before he moves, when he decides your voice outranks his own judgment. Myth issues the uniform, scarcity issues everything else. Level 4, Jungza. You've been promoted again, and somewhere in that promotion something has shifted that has nothing to do with rank. You start to actually believe it. Not because anyone argues you into it, no one argues here, but because the name of your unit has been said to you so many times, in so many rooms, that it has stopped being a name and started being a fact about who you are. Storm Corps. The word itself is a piece of equipment, issued like the uniform, built to hold men together when supplies and comfort cannot. You've seen it work, you've felt your own spine straighten at the sound of it. There's a structural fact underneath that feeling, one most of the men around you never think about. This corps does not answer to a regional command the way ordinary infantry does. Its reporting line runs straight up, developed specifically so an order from the very top can reach a unit like yours by voice, cable, telephone or courier without passing through layers that might slow it or soften it. You are, in a very literal sense, closer to the top of the country than almost anyone else your age will ever be. You just can't see the top from here. You only feel the pull of it. Loyalty, at this level, is doing the job of pay. There is little money in this life and less of it reaches you. What replaces it is belief, manufactured, reinforced, but by now indistinguishable to you from something you chose yourself. A soldier who is paid can quit. A soldier who believes cannot afford to. Level 5. So we, sub-lieutenant, the first officer's bar, and the first time the men beneath you outnumber the ones above. Something you were never told becomes obvious the day the bar goes on your collar. This entire structure you've climbed into was rebuilt once, from the ground up. The unit that eventually became the Storm Corps didn't always look like this. In the early 1990s, it was reorganized out of what had been a training and guidance bureau for light infantry, merged with other special units, and reformed into the corps you now hold a command inside. The ladder above you is not ancient. It is a construction, assembled deliberately by people who are still alive to have opinions about how well it's holding. That should be comforting. Nothing here is fixed, so nothing here is unchangeable, but it lands the other way. If the structure was built once, it can be rebuilt again, and a rebuilding rarely improves the position of the man standing where you're standing. Authority, at platoon level, doesn't feel like power. It feels like a debt collector showed up disguised as a promotion. You are responsible now for men's sleep, their food, their small failures, in a system with very little slack for any of it. You didn't ask for this weight. It was handed to you the moment you stopped being cheap to replace. Nobody warns you that command is not a gift. It's a loan, and the interest is paid in other people's mistakes landing on your record. Level 6, Jungwi, Lieutenant, now holding a company instead of a platoon, and standing, without quite realizing it, at a hinge point in the institution's own history. You remember where you were the day the new unit marched. It was April 2017, a parade day, and state television showed something the public hadn't been shown before. Soldiers in gear that looked deliberately modern, introduced as a new independent branch built specifically to answer foreign special operations forces, the kind of unit meant to be seen as a counter to elite units from other countries. What used to be simply Storm Corps folded into something larger and newly named, an entire branch built to stand alongside Army, Navy, and Air Force rather than beneath them. You didn't design that reorganization. You didn't vote on it, because there was no vote. But you feel its weight, the way a company commander feels weight, in the paperwork that changed overnight, in the new acronym stitched into orders, in men under you who now belong, technically, to something with a different name than the thing they signed their lives to. The institution rewrites itself around you and calls it progress. Your job is to keep 100 men steady while the ground redraws itself under their boots. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, comment what you want next. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We upload every single day. A company commander doesn't get to ask why the name changed. He gets to make sure nobody under him notices the ground move. Level 7, Soryong, Major. Now, and for the first time your work happens mostly on paper, in a room, far from the men whose lives it still governs. You're pulled to a staff post, and the war you've spent a decade preparing your body for turns out to live somewhere you never expected, inside a department. The operations that give special operations units their actual missions, infiltration planning, sabotage targeting, the tasking that decides which brigade does what if the peninsula ever goes hot, flow from a specific desk inside the General Staff's operations structure, a bureau most soldiers below field grade rank never hear named. You've now met the men who staff it. They do not look like soldiers. They look like accountants who happen to hold the fates of brigades in a drawer. The epiphany here is quiet, and it doesn't announce itself with a drumbeat. The war is not coming. It has never been coming, not in any way you can point to on a calendar. And yet it has already taken your 20s, your sleep, your body's best years, spent training for a contingency that may never arrive and that you have no power to hasten or prevent. You signed up for a war. What you got was a career built entirely around its absence. Level 8, Derry Young, Colonel, and the distance between you and the men who once called you sir for the first time has become a fact you can measure in walls, not just rank. Your actual missions this year aren't the ones the myth promised. In 2020, core units like the one you now help direct were sent not toward a foreign enemy, but to the country's own northern edge, along the border with China, to help suppress smuggling and what internal reporting called anti-state activity. Men trained for infiltration, repurposed for border enforcement against their own countrymen. Nobody who joined at 17 imagined this particular assignment. It is real, it is documented, and it sits uneasily against everything the recruiting myth implied. At this rank, the paranoia isn't a personality flaw. It's the job description. You read reports filtered through 3 subordinates before they reach you. You know that what you're told and what actually happened in a given valley are not always close cousins. You sleep less. You trust fewer people by design, because trust, at this altitude, is how careers and sometimes lives end. Command doesn't insulate you from danger, it just changes which kind of danger can reach you, and makes sure you never see it coming from the direction you expected. Level 9. So young. General officer now, commanding thousands of men you will never personally meet, most of whom will never see your face outside a photograph. Corps level command in this army sits at either of two general ranks, colonel general or lieutenant general, and history inside this specific institution has not been kind to the men who hold it. Commanders here have been rotated, demoted and replaced without warning, sometimes for failures that were never publicly explained, sometimes for nothing the record shows at all. You are, at this level, responsible for an entire corps' readiness, discipline and loyalty, and simultaneously less secure in your own position than a sergeant is in his. The men under you experience command as distance, orders arriving from somewhere above, decisions made without their input, consequences landing without warning. What they don't see is that you experience the exact same thing, aimed upward. You are the top of their world and comfortably the middle of someone else's. Total responsibility at this rank does not buy you total safety, it buys you a wider net to fall through, and more people watching when you do. Level 10. Sangjang, Colonel General, the summit of this particular climb, the rank that exists to answer to exactly one man above it. The corps you began as a private inside has, in recent years, sent brigades of its soldiers, men who trained the way you trained, ate the way you ate, believed the way you believed, into a war on foreign soil, fighting alongside an ally thousands of miles from the training grounds where all of this started. Reporting on those deployments describes soldiers unfamiliar with the terrain, unfamiliar with drone warfare, taking losses that outside estimates have placed in the thousands. The officer who holds ultimate command of the forces built from this corps answers, on paper, directly to the country's supreme leadership, no layer between his signature and the decision to send men somewhere they will not all return from. This is the reframe the whole climb was built toward, and it arrives quietly, the way the truest things do. You did not climb this ladder to become the man who fights. You climbed it to become the name attached to the casualty count, the rank where courage stops being a personal quality and becomes a resource you allocate, a currency you spend on men who trusted the same myth you once did. At 17, in a muster hall that decided your worth before you ever opened your mouth. The private at the bottom and the general at the top are not opposites. They are the same debt, carried at different weights, by men who were never really asked if they wanted to carry it. You did not arrive at the top of something. You arrived at what is left after everyone else was sent ahead of you. The floodlight over the formation square clicks off at dawn, the way it has every morning for longer than anyone currently serving has been alive. The square is empty now, swept clean of the night's cold, waiting the way it always waits. Not for you, not for the man who held Sangjang before you, not for the one who will hold it after. Just for the next line of 17-year-olds standing where you once stood, files already decided, uniforms already 2 sizes too big, none of them yet told what any of it will cost. Somewhere past the wire the light comes up over a country still standing, the way it always has. This has been your climb through North Korea's Storm Corps.